So, so the Black Lives Matter mural, I think, is a great addition to the town, and the hashtag or motto "Chestertown Unites Against Racism," I think, is exactly appropriate for the moment that we're in. We live in a small town and in a community that one cannot deny has had racial troubles in the past and continues to experience, if nothing else, gentrification, but certainly racial issues and racial divide. We can see it. Once your eyes are open to it, you can see it sort of every day. And the first step in this was and is the Chestertown Unites Against Racism, Black Lives Matter part, right? But in many respects, that's and I know that this is a buzzword and one must be careful with it, but it is in many respects performative. And it is up to us now to make those words meaningful, and not just make them meaningful for our black citizens, but also educate our white citizens and move forward into what I hope will be a new, more united future in line with what our mayor is advocating via the 16-month plan. And as part of that journey, the council right now has apologized for slavery, is working toward creating a human relations commission. We're considering that over the next several meetings, and adopting an ordinance for human rights. Right? These are not unique to Chestertown. Other towns have done them. My fellow councilperson, Reverend Tolliver, has mentioned that Cumberland County has done this, Annapolis has done this, but so too has Charlotte, North Carolina, and Asheville apologized for slavery. Cambridge, Massachusetts, Amherst have ordinances for human rights and commissions. So we are joining, a crowd of progressive and enlightened folks moving toward a better future for all of our citizens, including our black citizens. And that's a good thing. That's a powerful thing, and it's in some cases it's difficult. In other cases, it's easy. In other cases, it requires time to bring all of our community members along. Right? Some people don't see it, right? And that's not necessarily bad. It's just that they don't see it yet, and I think we forget to say "yet" at the end of some of these sentences, right? So those are the next steps, right? And I think after that, we have the mayor's 16-point plan, which includes, review of our zoning ordinances so that we make sure that our housing policies are fair. It includes education, like I said, to help bring all of our citizens along. Our black community members know this history. They live with this history. But people who have come here, who have bought homes anywhere in town, to say nothing of our historic district, may not know all of the history that ships with Chestertown. And so, this 16-month plan will endeavor to correct some of that and do it in a way that's inclusive and brings all of us together. And I hope that out of this, conversations are started and people come closer together and become friends, become stronger together as neighbors, and ultimately strengthen our community and bring us together. But all of this really drives us toward, a brighter future in terms of economic development, right? You can't have better schools, you can't have better town services, you can't have, rainy day funds and lower taxes if you don't have people moving here, starting businesses, and generally, lifting our community up and providing opportunities for everybody, right? And so, something that I feel very strongly about, and something that caused me to run for town council in 2019, was the idea of creating Kent County and Chestertown in particular as a technology hub. I'm just off of a meeting with Jamie Williams, our wonderful economic director, who is breaking her back trying to bring jobs and opportunities to the county and to Chestertown, about data centers, right? And Maryland recently passed a piece of legislation that removed tax disincentives for data center development. That was just recently adopted into law in 2019. And now we're doing the hard work of figuring out our zoning so that we make sure that we are able to take advantage of any opportunities that come our way. We're beginning to understand data centers. We're beginning to understand how they could fit in Kent County and still preserve our, what amounts to a colonial era landscape, an unspoiled colonial era landscape, achieving that balance. And so, as we think about that, and as we make the connections with people who are building these data centers, from financial centers in Wilmington or federal government contracts with various agencies in Washington, D.C. or state government, we're looking at a real opportunity for Kent County. And that then, once those opportunities begin to land, that begins to lift everyone up. I think the big step was removing the tax hurdle, right? You look at Loudoun County, Virginia, which in data center terms is a stone's throw away. They went from I think a $10 million county budget, and now they're something like 10 or 20 times, even 30 times that amount of money in revenue. And it's all predicated on the backs of data centers. And here's the thing that I don't think that people understand is it doesn't happen in a day, but you have to be ready for it when people come. The competition is so fierce that if you're not ready to say, yep, here is your spot right here, sir or ma'am, then they go on to someplace else, right? An interesting anecdote. I had a contact, just sort of a random, acquaintance, an introduction through a third party who was interested, who does data center building development, not the data center itself, just the development of the physical plant. And I enticed him to come down to Kent County. We talked, and he said, "Well, where's all your power?" And we were like, "Well, I think there's a substation here." He said, "Well, where's the water?" He said, "Oh, we've got water. There's tons of water. There's water right here." And what's the zoning? And we were like, "Well, we're figuring out the zoning." And he said, "Okay, well, call me when it's ready," right? And off he went, and it has probably built 3 other, projects someplace else. So that's the thing that's holding us back. But here's the good news. With that information, we created an interactive map that you can sort of toggle on and off, overlays, kind of Google Earth-esque, where you can show where the power substations are, and then you can lay over top of that where water and sewer is. And then you can pick the types of zones, industrial, ag, whatever, that, will overlay that. And so now that conversation changes, right? Now when that person shows up and says, "Well, show me where your power stations are." Click, here you go. Well, are they zoned properly? As a matter of fact, they are. Here you go. And what kind of data center would you be interested in? Brownfield development, what are we talking here? Is it an enterprise scale, Google data center? Or is it NSA? Or is it, a smaller, more proprietary type data center? And we can answer we're beginning to be able to answer those questions now. And I think there's a real energy behind it. But again, the broader picture is that it all loops back to our community. It lifts all of us up. It makes our schools better, right? And I get that the town council doesn't have anything to do, with managing the schools, but I have a real interest in the schools being good, right? And I want, to say to all of my technology friends who are looking to get out of the city, come to Kent County. Real estate's relatively cheap. Quality of life is great. Sure, there's no Starbucks. But when you start going to Evergreen or Play It Again Sam's, you're not going to miss, you're not going to miss that habit.